Good morning and welcome to this Friday's edition of Who's Tom and Dick. I'm Patrick Mortimer and I'm your host this morning. I hope you've all had a good week, and as we come to terms with the loss of our dear friend Martin, we try and push on with the podcast. I've had loads and loads of messages about Martin. He was certainly a well-liked man, and we thank you for all your messages and condolences and your encouragement to push on with the podcast, which is something that I'm still struggling with. Don't really know what to do. But today I'm joined by a guest, Jenny Beard. Jenny has been suffering with breast cancer, so she's got some interesting tips and advice to help those in a similar situation. So without further ado, let's go over to Jenny. Good morning, Jenny, and welcome to Who's Tom and Dick.
Good morning.
We have covered breast cancer in the past, but for you, how did you find out you had breast cancer? Did you have any symptoms? What was the trigger for you?
The short answer is yes, I had symptoms. The longer answer is that I didn't realize they were symptoms until after I was diagnosed. The reality here, you guys, is that I am almost 50 years old and I'm in perimenopause. And when you get to be my age and you're in perimenopause, every doctor dismisses everything you feel as perimenopause. Perimenopause has like 100 symptoms. So all of the symptoms that I now know are cancer were pretty much dismissed as being perimenopause. I was having headaches. I was overly tired. One of the biggest things I was experiencing, and actually still am, is that my right breast hurts all the time. And they said, oh, it's just the hormonal changes of getting older and entering the phase. But there were two symptoms that I had that I wish somebody thought to look at deeper. One was that my right arm aches like 3 or 4 days a week. And I go to the gym. So my doctor was like, oh yeah, it's just because you're going to the gym, you're working it out. It's just tired. You're getting older. Not a big deal. Now, in hindsight, my surgeon has told me that because I have lymph nodes on the right side, that can cause your arm to ache in response to the fight that's going on inside there. And then the other symptom that in hindsight, I now know is cancer is that every night for about the past 6 to 9 months, I have felt like I was getting the flu. You know that buzzy feeling you get when you're about to get sick? You feel like you're going to get a fever, but you don't actually get a fever. I have that almost every night. My doctors now are telling me that this is my body fighting this infection or the cancer in my body. It's causing my immune system to work overtime. So I had symptoms, but I didn't know they were symptoms until after the fact, and neither did anybody else.
What was it like for you to find out you'd got breast cancer once you had the diagnosis?
The time between getting a breast biopsy and getting the results from that biopsy is worse than hearing that you have cancer. I went into my biopsy knowing that there was a high probability they were going to find something. The person who did my diagnostic mammogram and ultrasound was like, no, your tumor is rated a BI-RAD 4C, so we're super concerned about it. We need you to biopsy. So I was already super nervous about that biopsy. But at the end of my biopsy procedure, they did 2 lumps, one in my breast, one in my lymph node. The doctor pulled her little stool up next to me and said, you need to tell your family that you probably have cancer. So I left my biopsy shaking. And I remember sitting in the parking lot. I called my husband. I was like, oh my God, they think I have cancer. I'm shaking so bad I can't even drive. And I was pretty much like that for a week. I was so nervous. I was so scared. My mind was going to those places like, am I going to die? Is this really bad? What does this look like? Oh my gosh, is it stage 4? Is it spread through my whole body? How bad is it? And there's this time in that week between biopsy and results where you're fighting the demon of the unknown. You're just in a battle because you don't know anything, and that is the worst possible place to be. So ultimately, I did get the results and it was cancer, but I can tell you that the moment I found out it was cancer, I felt immense relief.
Really?
The way I was so anxious for that time period of waiting, finding out it was cancer and knowing what I was fighting felt like a million pounds off my shoulders because I knew what to do next. I wasn't in the battle with the unknown anymore. And ever since I found out, I've been very, very calm, very, very empowered, able to do what I need to do. And it was like just a switch flips and you go from being terrified to being like, okay,
How do you actually manage to stay calm through all of that?
So I'm going to preface this conversation by saying that I'm not always calm. I have moments of panic. I have moments of freak out. I was crying last night over something a family member said. It's not always, sunshine and rainbows over here, but there's still pockets where I'm a hot mess. I've been thinking about what is it that makes me so calm. I didn't grow up in the church. I don't call my higher power God like a lot of people do, but I do have a very, very, very deep belief in the universe and the reason we came here. I look at every single situation in front of me and I ask myself, how is this happening for me? What is the lesson I'm here to learn? Where is this leading me? What good is this bringing into my life? And frankly, when I look at cancer, I can see the good it's brought into my life. There's so much good that's come out of this cancer diagnosis. There's a lot of bad, but there's a lot of good too.
That's a great way of looking at it, but how did you tell your family about the diagnosis?
So obviously my husband knew first, and then we wanted to tell our children before we told anybody else. And our kids are in college. They're several hours away at college. So we ended up FaceTiming them, which is not the ideal situation for me. I wanted to tell them in person, but things were moving so fast. I just didn't have time to drive out to where they're in school. So we ended up on a FaceTime call, our weekly family FaceTime call. My girls knew I was having a mammogram and they knew I needed a biopsy. I literally just said, I got my results and unfortunately it's breast cancer.
Wow, online, I didn't expect that.
Of course, they were shocked and confused and they had 1,000 questions and we just answered them as honestly as we could and we tried to stay calm and they were teary and upset, but we kept the conversation moving and we kept it light as we could so that they knew I was going to be okay. Once my kids knew, then I felt okay letting everybody else know. And so my husband and I waited to tell everyone else until after we had met with the surgeon and had a plan in place. We kind of knew what those next steps were. And we just systematically one night called every single member of our family and told them over the phone. And the reactions were pretty mixed. Some people were like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. What can we do? Immediately jumped into let us help you mode. And then I would say the majority of the people were just shocked to hear the news and fell into the mode of, well, thanks for letting us know. And then they backed off.
Wow, really?
What I found is that those people who said, thanks for letting us know, have remained backed off. They have not come into the space at all. They have not texted, they have not called, they have not asked any questions. They're just sort of staying out of the way because that's how they think they're being helpful. It's an interesting thing when you start telling people you have cancer. It's really true that you learn who is in your corner, fully in your corner. They sort of stick that stake in the ground and they're going to walk this path with you. And who is sort of just watching and waiting and sort of doesn't want to be a part of the process. They're just waiting for you to get through it. And I will say it's been very surprising who has bulldozed forward and said, we're going to do this together, and who has pulled back.
So I'm guessing once you've been diagnosed, then the next stage is to be tested and find out exactly what cancer and the treatment you're going to have. Did you have any tests, many tests?
Blood work, an MRI, a CT, a bone scan, and genetics counseling. Let's just start at the top. So the blood work came back 100% normal. Literally nothing was out of range. She tested every single thing she could think to test. Nothing is wrong with me on that regard. We did a CT with contrast. That was of the chest, abdomen, and pelvis. And the CT showed no abnormalities. Everything came back clean on the CT. So that's really good news. The bone scan was done with contrast as well, and that came back 100% clear. It didn't show anything except the normal, spine bone degeneration of being 50 years old. And of course, the MRI came back showing what we knew about the cancer. It showed the lump in my breast. It showed the lymph nodes. The only discrepancy was that the MRI actually showed the tumor to be almost twice the size the ultrasound showed it. But the surgeon told me that ultrasounds aren't necessarily reliable as far as measurements go. Lastly, we had genetics testing, and I actually requested the upgraded genetics testing where they test, I think it's over 30 different genetic mutations for all different kinds of cancers, not just breast cancer. And that came back 100% clear. There's nothing genetically indicated. There's no markers, nothing. After all those tests, if I didn't have cancer, I would be in exquisite health.
It's quite amazing that you went through all these tests and most of them come up clear, apart from the breast cancer, obviously. But how do you think this has all affected your mental health going forward?
I feel like cancer has become my whole personality. Sure as hell feels that way. And it's really hard not to be obsessed with your own diagnosis when you're in the middle of treatment, when every time you look in the mirror, all you see is cancer, when every time you undress, all you see is cancer, when everything that hurts reminds you of your cancer. But I'm not just cancer. I'm so much more than that. I'm a mom to 2 college-age daughters. I've been married to their father since we were in college for 26 years. I'm super creative. I love plants. I love interior design. I'm good with anything that requires me to think outside the box and make things beautiful. 5 years ago, I became certified in human design. I'm obsessed with being a human design projector. I love human design and knowing that piece of a person. I have 3 dogs. I'm in therapy. Most people call their higher power God, and I call it the universe. I'm an entrepreneur. I've owned and operated 3 successful businesses, and I'm a wizard with business. I can take any idea and turn it into something that will make money. I don't eat gluten, and I haven't had alcohol in 10 years. And I'm that friend in any conversation when the ice needs to break. I am the person who will say something with shock value just to throw people off their game. See? So much more than cancer.
You certainly are. There's no doubt about that. Going on then, obviously, how did people react to your cancer? Or how would you suggest people should react to anybody who's just had a cancer diagnosis?
I was at an event the other day and someone came up to me and they said, my sister-in-law was diagnosed with cancer and I don't know what to say to her. So this is what I told her. I have 2 tips. The first tip is stop tiptoeing, you treating them like they're made of eggshells or glass. They need you to say, you know what? This sucks. And I know it's hard, but we're going to do this together. Don't need you to say, let me know what you need or let me know if I can help. They need you to say, you know what? I'm coming over tomorrow at 10 a.m. with coffee. We're going to go for a walk and we're going to talk it out. They are in shock. They are in hell. They need you to step up and be like, I don't know how to do this, but we're going to do this together. No more tiptoeing. And the second thing I told her was that as much as you want to show up during the cancer journey, the more important time to show up is after the cancer journey. When you're diagnosed with cancer, you immediately go into go mode, right? You're solving the problem. You're doing the treatments. You're getting the tests. You're literally one foot in front of the other, getting to the other side of just beating this beast down. You kind of go numb just to get through it, to get through all the action steps you have, the tasks that it takes to beat cancer. And then on the day of your last treatment, it's over. And then suddenly it's all quiet. And everything you've been through lands on your heart. It all starts to be processed and you realize, I've walked through hell. And unfortunately for cancer patients, this is when most people look at you and they're like, oh, your treatments are done. You're good now, right? You're good? No, babe, we're not good. This is when we need our people the most, is in the after, when we don't know who we are. We don't know what we want. We don't know if our job is a good fit. We don't know who the person in the mirror is. Our bodies don't look the same. Our faces don't look the same. Our hair doesn't look the same. All these things change. And in the aftermath is when we need the most support. We need our friends to say, you know what? I'm coming over with coffee. We're going to talk.
Yesterday, I was having coffee with a friend and I just said to my friend yesterday, I guess I better start looking at some wigs and some tattoo eyebrows and all of these things. And she immediately said, stop thinking like that. Stop putting chemo out into the world. Stop assuming you're going to need chemo. You're not going to need chemo. It's going to be fine. You're manifesting that you need chemo by talking about it. When you have cancer, you have to think about all of the options, all of the possibilities, if for nothing more than the fact that you need to be mentally prepared for what's coming so you're not blindsided when a doctor says, hey, you need chemo. I know everybody's trying to be positive and say, oh, think positive, think happy thoughts, think only good things. But when you tell me not to think about what could happen, what is likely to happen, you dismiss how I feel. Cancer is a really hard journey, and there's a lot we have to think about. It sucks when we can't talk to the people we love about it because they don't want to hear it because it's too negative. And listen, I am an extremely optimistic person. I am not devastated by cancer. This has not knocked me down. But I'm also a realist who doesn't want to be slapped upside the face by something my oncologist is going to say because I buried my head in the sand about it. If you know somebody who has cancer, just let them feel and say whatever it is they're going to say without trying to tamp it down or put it back into the box because you're afraid of what it might bring. Just listen, be a sounding board, and just listen without trying to make them feel what you think they should feel and think what you think they should think. You're not the one with cancer. And so I just need you to listen.
That's a really good answer and very helpful. Speaking of chemo, though, did you need chemo?
My cancer is invasive ductal carcinoma, estrogen and progesterone positive, HER2 negative. I have a grade 2 tumor. After my surgery, we discovered 2 positive lymph nodes. I received my oncotype score, and that was a 3. In the cancer world, when you have a low oncotype, it is assumed that chemo is not of benefit. However, I have learned that that is not always the case. So the tumor they took out of me is 1.5 centimeters. It's pretty small. And having such a small tumor, my oncologist was very surprised that that tumor had already spread to 2 lymph nodes. When they did the pathology after my surgery, they discovered that I had what's called extranodal extension, meaning that the cancer had spread outside of the lymph node capsule into the surrounding tissue. This means that my tumor is considered to be more aggressive. And so it's for that reason, and also extensive lymphatic invasion, that even though my oncotype score is really low, I still need chemo. My oncologist is nervous that even though my tumor is saying it's not aggressive, it's acting aggressive. And so she thinks that chemo is indicated to clean up all of those microscopic bits.
So what is the difference between chemo and radiation treatment?
The way I like to think about it is when you're washing your clothes, you're using detergent. That detergent is spreading over the entire garment and it's releasing the dirt from the fibers across the entire garment. That is chemo. Chemo is put in your body to clean up all the microscopic bits throughout your entire body. But if you have a sweater and it's got a stain, you would use a Tide pen or a focused little blob of detergent to really get that stain out in that one specific spot because it needs a little bit of extra help releasing from the fibers. That is radiation. Radiation targets where the tumors were to make sure that they really release and they clean up everything in that area, just like a stain in your clothes. When you put those two together, they create a comprehensive and effective way of making sure that your body is as clean of cancer as it can possibly be going forward. It's actually pretty amazing that we have this science and the combination to eradicate cancer. And this is why more and more people aren't dying from cancer.
Did you need a port for your chemotherapy?
When I met with my medical oncologist and I asked this question, do I need a port? Her suggestion was no. She said, it's only 8 infusions. You don't need a port. Why go through an extra procedure when you don't have to? But I have some friends who are oncology nurses and they all say, get a port, because who wants to be stuck that many times? Whenever I go to the hospital, they put this bracelet on my arm where I had the lymph nodes removed that says limb alert, meaning they're not going to draw blood, they're not going to take blood pressure, they're not going to do anything on that side, which leaves me only with my left arm for all these IV sticks. And 24 sticks in 16 weeks in one arm is a lot, especially since I have tough veins, meaning my veins are very deep. And no matter when I get my blood drawn, it takes them 2 or 3 tries to find the vein. So I can just imagine how that's going to feel after 24 of these sticks.
I can only imagine. How did the treatment or the chemo go with you? Did it affect you much?
Chemo round 1 was like being hit by a truck, but then the truck backs up to make sure that you felt the bone-crushing pain of being hit by a truck. That was no joke. So by far, my biggest symptoms kicked in 24 hours after the Neulasta shot. And those symptoms were bone pain, insane amount of bone pain. I'm taking Claritin, I'm taking Tart Cherry, I've tried Zyrtec, I've taken Advil and Tylenol. I've done all of the things, and the bone pain is just incomprehensible. It feels like shin splints down the front of my legs and my entire jaw on fire and aching nonstop. And I had a migraine that was squeezing my head for 3 days straight. I genuinely think that if I didn't need the Neulasta shot, I wouldn't have had any side effects from chemo because everything was around that bone pain. And my legs are covered in a rash. They're covered in what's called chemo rash, which is a raised, bumpy rash that I guess is a reaction to the chemo. So that's it pretty much. I had bone pain, I have the rash, and I was pretty tired. I expected to just not be able to wake up. I expected just sleep for days. And honestly, I would have preferred that. But I had so much pain that I couldn't sleep. The things that helped were Advil and Tylenol on a regular schedule. Gummies helped me sleep a little bit. Heating pads helped. Walking helped. Walking really helped my shin splint pain. But that made the jaw pain worse. And so I ended up walking with a heating pad wrapped around my jaw.
So your treatment was a double mastectomy. Tell us about that.
The procedure itself was pretty straightforward. I was knocked out. I woke up in recovery in a compression bra, a lot of gauze padding, and almost no pain. So far, I haven't needed anything more than Tylenol or Motrin to manage my pain. It's not really a stabby pain. It's more of a dull ache pain, kind of like I did 300 push-ups at the gym. Incisions across the front are really numb. 2 times a day, I take off this compression bra and all the gauze that's underneath. I put some cream on my incisions. I put gauze back and I put the compression bra on. But I've been walking 3 times a day for like 15 or 20 minutes per my surgeon's instructions and just sort of getting my body moving to prevent those blood clots. But for the most part, I feel really good. My pain is manageable and I have no major complaints. Now that I'm on the other side, I definitely feel like I psyched myself into thinking this was going to be worse than it is.
Well, people do have various reactions. Some, like my old colleague Martin, he dealt with it really well and strongly. He had a positive mental attitude. But obviously the treatment is different for everyone. So what options were offered to you going forward?
I have a feeling my decision is going to be a tiny bit controversial. The options that were presented to me with a plastic surgeon were to have implants where you get the expanders and they slowly fill them over time and you end up with, silicone exchange at the end. Option number 2 was to do something called a deep flap procedure where they take fat from your belly and they build you new breasts from that tissue. Option number 3, which technically wasn't actually presented to me, was to stay flat. After meeting with the plastic surgeon, I knew immediately I could take the deep flap procedure where they take the fat from your stomach. I could take that off the table. He looked at my body. He examined how much he could pinch on my stomach. And I do way too much Pilates to even have enough fat to get me a very small A cup in the chest area. So he didn't think it would be worth it.
Right.
So then I was down to the decision between having implants and getting the expanders. Something about the size of my breasts and my tissue made him think I would not be eligible for direct to implant. So it was between getting expanders and having that process done and staying flat. Once presented with those 2 choices, I immediately knew that I wanted to stay flat, that I did not want implant. And I know this is a really personal decision and every woman has a different opinion on this and every woman chooses differently. But for me, I knew I would never be happy with silicone implants. It just wouldn't ever feel natural to me. So it was kind of a no-brainer decision to stay flat.
Right. And what's this all about an iron bra? I keep thinking about Iron Man.
So I have range of motion in my arms. Like I can kind of flap my arms. I can use my arms. They can go up. They can go out. There is no pain to do that. Maybe a little ache under my arms, but that's about it. The iron bra feeling feels like my entire chest area here is encased in steel. It feels like there's no flexibility here whatsoever. So when I move my shoulders forward or move my shoulders back, everything here feels like it's stretching and it's like tight stretch. It's like that feeling of not moving a body part for a while. And then you have to sort of like, slowly get your body to stretch back so that it's mobile again. But that happens 67 times a day. This doesn't stay stretched out. It goes right back to being tight. My surgeon said it will take a couple months for me to feel limber here again, but it's an odd sensation. But yeah, the iron bra is no fun.
So what is life after cancer for you then, Jenny? Tell us a bit about that.
It starts with feeling safe again. Because unfortunately, the moment you hear those words, you have cancer, safety unravels. You don't feel safe in your body and sometimes even in your home. It feels like a betrayal, like the ground beneath you has shifted. First, I try to start every single day with movement. So I get back into my body, so I can feel my body, so I recognize how strong I still am. Whether this is a walk outside or a walk on my walking pad or a little bit of yoga, some kind of movement just to reconnect me to my body. The second thing I've done is I've created a little safe corner in my home that is just mine. It's a spot where I feel cozy, where I feel safe. I added cozy blankets, candles, plants, pillows, everything I need to feel like I'm in a little cocoon. It's in this corner where I feel like I can breathe and like I can start to let things go. So here's the shift. Safety isn't something that just magically returns after cancer. It's something that we have to intentionally rebuild for ourselves. And every time you move your body and you reconnect to your body, or you sit in your safe little corner of your home, you're telling your nervous system it's okay to trust again. You have 2 action steps today on day 1. Number 1, find a movement that you can do every morning, even if it's just for 5 minutes, that reconnects you to your body. And number 2, create a little corner for yourself in your home, a place that feels cozy and serene and is only for you. That's where we start.
Well, I think you've been amazing in this, Jenny, and I think you're an inspiration to many women out there, and I'm sure a lot of them going through this at the moment will gain a lot of confidence in what you've said today. Just finally, do you ever fear that the cancer might come back one day?
Cancer isn't the first time I have had to face these fears around death and scary things. I've been battling these voices in my head for 18 years. I can tell you this, you don't conquer it. You learn to live with it and coexist with the fears of recurrence and death and dying. About 18 years ago, both of my daughters were diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. And back then, CF was considered to be terminal. Today, it's more chronic because of medical discoveries and current medical treatments. But back then, when I was told that both my daughters had CF, they had a life expectancy of around 20. Every day, I would freak out about the thought of losing them. And if you're a mom, you know how visceral that fear is and how much it can disrupt your mind. As a mother, it was the fear of losing my kids. But as a cancer survivor, now it's the fear of, what if it comes back? What if there's no treatment this time? What if I have to get chemo again? What if? Our mind goes down this rabbit hole. And over the years, I have tried everything to shut down these fears, all these little voices in my head. I've tried meditation. I've tried medication. I've tried alcohol. I've tried ignoring them. I've tried therapy. But there was one thing that worked better than anything else, and that was noticing the fears and then giving them an actual name. I literally gave the committee of doomsday ranting in my head a name. I call it the crisis cabinet. A specific fear-based voice around cancer. Her name is Sheila. And when Sheila starts spinning stories in my head, I literally stop and say, not now, Sheila. You're not in charge today. And then in my mind, I picture Sheila taking a seat in the back of the theater. Having these fears is totally natural. There's nothing wrong with you. The key is to notice when you have them, give them a name, and take away their power. Because those fears are never fully going to go away, ever. But they also don't get to be a main character. Sheila and the crisis cabinet get to sit in the back row of the theater, but they do not get to make any real decisions or star in the movie of my life. I am the main character, and I get to keep it that way. During treatment, you're surviving, right? You're in go mode. You're going through the motions. You're doing what needs to be done to get to the other side. There is no time for processing. And then at the end, you have your last chemo, last radiation, last treatment appointment, and you go home and you're like, what now? It all hits you. That emotional wave of everything you've just been through crashes into you. You look back at the mountain you've just climbed and it feels like whiplash, and you realize how much you've just gone through, and it hits you like a ton of bricks. And I wanted to talk about some things that have really helped me process what I've been through. I will say hindsight is 20/20 here. I didn't realize how much these things were really helping me until I started looking back over the last 6 months. Now, the obvious things that help are therapy, journaling, and survivor groups. These can be really helpful. But beyond those, I found a lot of comfort in first, not trying to think things to death.
I know it's human nature, right? We try to think our way through the pain, but it actually ends up making things hurt worse and linger longer. So instead of sitting there thinking about how to heal from cancer, I actually just replaced that process with binging audiobooks. I listened to audiobooks when I was working, walking, cleaning, knitting. Anytime I could listen to audiobooks, I had them on. And what this ended up doing for me was keeping me out of my head and keeping me from spiraling. The second thing that really helped me, and I know this one's probably obvious, was getting back to working out consistently. In the beginning, I could only go 1-2 days a week, but now 6 months out, I'm at 5 days a week, and movement really keeps me in my body. It keeps me from spiraling out of control and feeling too deeply about things I can't control. So I put myself back into my body physically. Side note, movement and going to bar classes and yoga classes really helps me manage my letrozole joint pain and keeps those side effects from becoming too unmanageable. That was good for me. I turn off my phone at 8 p.m. I do my skincare. I'll journal. I'll knit for a little while. I don't watch TV. I don't look at a blue light. I let my body decompress at night so that my sleep is a lot better. I'm in bed and asleep by 9:30 consistently, and I wake up at exactly 6:30 every day. I give my body that routine. And then in the morning, I don't allow myself to look at a screen for the first hour. I let myself wake up and drink coffee and snuggle my dogs and take a minute to let my nervous system kind of wake up a little bit without having the intrusion of notifications and blue light and all of that stuff that we see every day. Now, when those feelings of cancer and fear and recurrence fears and all the things we experience come floating to the surface for me, I have these coping mechanisms that help me manage them and process them and step out of that a little bit quicker. These do not replace therapy. That is by far the number one thing you should be doing after cancer. But they do allow me to calm my nervous system and start releasing the trauma of cancer little by little.
Well, thank you very much, Jenny, for that very open and honest account of your life with breast cancer. It truly is remarkable and inspirational to many. And I'm sure that your account today has helped so many. If you've just been diagnosed with breast cancer or you're going through a similar situation, we wish you all the very best with your treatment and progress along the way. So, this brings us to the end of today's podcast. On my own, I hope I've done it justice, and I hope Martin would agree. It has been a very difficult couple of weeks knowing what to do, but given that we never missed one podcast from the moment we started each Friday, I felt I'd have to do something today which gives me more time to think. But I certainly thank you all for your well wishes and your support, and of course, your encouragement to continue. So we'll see. Thanks everybody for listening this week. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. And maybe, hopefully, I'll see you same place, same time next week. And as my old mate Martin used to say, turn that frown upside down. Positive mental attitude, PMA. Bye for now.
You've been listening to the Who's Tom and Dick podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite streaming platform. New episodes are available every Friday. Thanks for tuning in.
The bond stays true through thick and thin, always breaking through. They'd reminisce under the old oak tree, sharing secret dreams. Just Tom and Dick, you see. Old mates, forever in sync. Stories to tell and a drink to link. Through laughter and tears, we rise and we fall. Every moment together, they cherish it all.